Okay, it's game time.
Get down!
Hasta luego.
Feast on this!
What up, it's Shankster94, and a very big welcome to my weapon review of Resident Evil 2 Remake. Now, there are a couple of disclaimers I must make before I continue. One, this game is still fairly new, in fact just a couple months old as of this recording, so I must emphasize that this review will contain spoilers for those who haven't tried out the game for themselves yet. If that doesn't concern you at all, by all means proceed. The other thing that a lot of longer-term viewers are used to, I have quite a bit to go over before I actually begin showcasing these weapons, so I'm going to go ahead and place a time code here on the screen for the impatient scrubs that couldn't care less to hear my commentary on the game or the layout of my weapon review. I'll also put the time code in the comment section so you can one-click to the action. Be warned, however, my silk-smooth, awesome voice enhanced by this Yeti microphone that I'm using will not go away in the entirety of this video, and none of you will put an end to it. Man, the cringe. Alright, so Resident Evil 2 Remake, as the title suggests, is a complete rebuild of the original Resident Evil 2. It keeps most of the story elements and in-game items, including weapons, similar to the original game. An example being that Leon and Claire, the two main characters in Resident Evil 2, have completely separate sets of weapons to acquire throughout the game, with the exception of unlockable weapons that become available to both characters after certain conditions are met during game completion. However, just like the first remake, there are quite a few new elements added in, being a modernized remake after all. An example of that would be, instead of only Leon's campaign containing custom parts for 3 of his guns, now there are custom parts in both characters' campaigns and for almost all of their weapons. Another cool feature that throws back to the first remake is the return of defensive weapons, although in this game they're referred to as sub-weapons. And there's a little cool feature about these sub-weapons that I will reveal once I get to the actual reviewing. I will make sure to include all of these elements in this weapon review. So, this being my first all-out original weapon review since Resident Evil 7, and the fact that I rarely do weapon reviews now since I've covered pretty much the whole series, I'm going to walk you guys through my weapon review routine. This is great for newcomers to the channel if they cared to stay up to this point and didn't use the time code earlier, and this is also good for longtime viewers who like seeing flashbacks of older videos because I like to show past games to demonstrate these steps that build up my showcases. So to prepare for the showcase, I break the weapons into categories, example, melee weapons, pistols, submachine guns, etc. I usually always start with the knives and throwing weapons. This game will be no exception. And it'll be just like my showcase of the first remake by starting with the knife and the sub-weapons. Then I'll proceed to the actual firearms, starting with pistols, onto submachine guns, shotguns, magnums, special weaponry, then finally ending with a bang with the explosive weapons. For each individual weapon, my first step is to introduce it in the inventory menu and then read its in-game description. If there's anything unique about the weapon or its description that I feel like emphasizing on, I'll do it right then and there as I'm introducing it. Next, I will reveal the location of where the weapon can be found, or how to unlock it if it's an unlockable. Then I'll proceed to show off the weapon in action by test firing it and reloading it, or if it's a non-firearm, simply test it out, in a safe, enemy-free environment. The obvious reason for that is so I don't get interrupted by flesh-hungry pests while trying to give you visual representation. If possible, I like to demonstrate the weapons in good lighting to give you the best possible interpretation of them. Following the initial testing of the weapon, I will share any opinions I have of my own, and then announce which enemy I've chosen to test the weapon on, and I'll usually keep to that same enemy type for the remainder of that current weapon class. A typical example would be all pistols would be tested on standard zombies. After choosing an enemy to test the weapon on, I'll proceed to my favorite part of the weapon reviewing and let the said enemy have it with the said weapon. Occasionally, I'll test out a seemingly overpowered weapon on a standard enemy to witness the annihilation the weapon may be capable of, and it can be pretty entertaining when I do that. The final step to reviewing an individual weapon is to go over the amount of hits or shots the weapon took on the chosen enemy and compare to earlier tests of other weapons in the same category, if there were any. I also may share my own final thoughts on the weapon if I have any at that point. From which then I declare the weapon reviewed, show off cutscenes featuring the weapon if there are any, then move on to the next weapon in the lineup. So now you know a little bit about the game and have a complete blueprint of the weapon review. So if you stuck around this long, I really commend your patience because I know not everybody has that kind of patience. Without further ado, let's go ahead and delve into what I consider one of the most anticipated weapon showcases in my channel's history. So to kick off this weapon review, I'm going to start with the weapon category that I always begin my weapon reviews with, the knives. And the first one is no exception to any review before it. The combat knife. So get a nice detailed look here at this screen that I'll be using to introduce all the weapons. I can get even more close up and move it around. I'll rotate it on a different axis. And now if we view it in the in-game menu, which will always follow after the screen I was just at, I can examine it this way too. So here's the combat knife. It's regarded as a sub-weapon, a standard military grade knife, sure to come in handy in a pinch. Sure thing. So yep, different angle, whatnot. Alright, so in game, as we are here, I can equip it like this. Sub-weapons are equipped using the bumper instead of the trigger. So real quick before I test it out, because I gotta reveal the location, the sub-weapons are scattered throughout all of the game, and the combat knife is probably the most abundant out of the 3 sub-weapons. So you'll have plenty of chances to acquire one of these, and they really do come in handy when used as defensive items. You can find plenty combat knives in the Tofu Survivor scenario, as you can see here. If you're a first-timer of the game, one thing that is not a bad idea to do is if you down an enemy with a gun, you could finish it off with the knife. The only problem is, I can't think right now if this has been done in a Resident Evil game before, but these knives do have a limit to how long you could use them before they actually break. You see that line below the depiction of the knife? That represents the amount of, I don't know, knife stamina it has left. Once that gets way down, you will start seeing the knife obviously degrade big time. But anyway, enough about it. Let's go ahead and test it out with no enemies intact. Alright, so that was the test of the knife. Nothing really to say about it beyond that. So we're gonna go ahead and delve into the enemy testing. So zombies are a lot trickier to deal with in this game. You can't just keep your distance and knife away at them. They will get to you. If you get a little close, they lunge at you. So zombies are pretty smart in this game. So I'm not gonna be able to test the knife the traditional way, hacking at the enemy while they're standing. I'm actually gonna test the combat knife on a crawling zombie that's been stripped of its legs, specifically Officer Elliot in the police station. Okay, so that took 17 slashes before he was officially dead, because there was this one sound that sounded pretty gross. That is the indication that they are finally dead, especially if you use the knife against them. So it took 17 slashes to officially kill him. I slashed at him a couple more times just to make pretty sure. So one thing I thought I should demonstrate real quick is how long a knife can last. It does have a limited durability. So I'm gonna find out how many slashes it takes to completely break a knife. I'm gonna use a dead zombie so I don't have to worry about it attacking me, but it will still use up the knife. So here we go, let's find out. I'll speed this up, of course. This is probably gonna take a while. Okay, that took me a total of 53 slashes to completely break the knife. Now, I don't know if this number is exact or kind of random depending on the circumstances. Like, for example, I could have been hitting 2 limbs at the same time, so maybe it was using up 2 hits, or maybe stronger enemies break the knife faster. I don't know. But anyway, it took me 53 slashes right there to break the knife with it completely brand new. So it's probably around that many hits that each knife can sustain. Alright, that's just a little fact I wanted to demonstrate. So that's all I can say about the knife really right now, because there's nothing else to compare it to. However, I'm not quite done with it. Now I'm going to demonstrate using it defensively, and the best way to do that will be to show it being used against all enemies that can be defended against. So enjoy this little slideshow of me defending against enemies with the combat knife. Alright, so there's the full extent of the combat knife for you.
You'll need this.
I can't take him.
Stop. You'll probably need this.
No, I'm not taking that. You're gonna...
Now for the next weapon, another combat knife. Now this one is also known as the Infinite Combat Knife. As you can see here in the inventory menu, it has an infinity symbol on it, so examine it on this angle. A specially treated military-grade knife that's been hardened to an unbelievable degree. They say it's been made to really last. So judging from that description and the fact that it has an infinity symbol, this knife does not have a finite durability. This will last forever, as long as you remember to retrieve it once you use it defensively on an enemy if you happen to. This is an unlockable knife. You unlock the Infinite Combat Knife by destroying all of the Mr. Raccoon statues. Alright, so now let's test it in-game. Highly doubt it will be any different than a regular combat knife. And so I was correct. It should be mentioned that the infinite combat knife can be found in Catherine Warren's inventory when playing the Ghost Survivors mode in her scenario. Alright, so let's see if this deals any different amount of damage to Zombie Elliot. Alright, I sort of lost count there because I didn't know he was already dead because it didn't make any noise. But basically, when he stopped moving, I think was around either 13 or 14 slashes. The actual answer is on the screen because I played it back. But yeah, this many slashes to take down Zombie Elliot, if you care to engage him, that is. Now, I'm only using him for this weapon test to compare the knives. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend you engage Elliot, because unlike some zombies, you can't trigger like a defensive action against him. I've tried. Anyway, so that proves that the survival knife that you unlock may be slightly stronger than a regular combat knife. Then again, the other knife that I used was actually not brand new. It was slightly used up just a little bit. So I wonder if that actually makes a difference, which also makes me wonder if you were to try to defeat a crawling zombie with a dull knife, will it take even more slashes? It's something I could demonstrate. I just don't feel like pouring the time in to find out such a fact, because I don't think it's necessary for game completion. So that's why I'm just going to skip out on it. Otherwise, this combat knife took less slashes than a regular combat knife. That's all I know. So that's going to end using the infinite combat knife offensively. Now I'm going to showcase using it defensively again. So enjoy the slideshow. Alright, that will conclude the infinite combat knife. Probably called it survival knife a couple of times. Now for the next sub-weapon, the flash grenade. And here it is in game. A hand grenade that creates a large flash of light and a loud sound on detonation. Alright, so like the combat knife, this is a sub-weapon and is abundant throughout the game in both characters' scenarios. Now, unlike Resident Evil 1 Remake, the characters do not get separate sub-weapons, like how Jill got the stun gun and while Chris got the flash grenade. Now, in this game, both characters get the same sub-weapons. Alright, so let's go ahead and test the flash grenade out. Two different throwing animations depending on where you aim. Alright, so this being a flash grenade, I do not think you can defeat enemies with this. At least not just using it in that sense. You might be able to defeat enemies if you use it defensively, but we'll be getting to that. For now, I'm going to test the flash grenade on a standard zombie just to see the effect. So as expected, it just stunned the zombie and he was disoriented for a set amount of time, like 15 to 20 seconds or so. So the flash grenade is a great thing to use to get out of tense situations, to stun your enemies, make it easier for you to defeat them. Very typical usage. Alright, so that ends using it in that sense. So I'm going to show you guys now using it defensively against all of the enemies that can be defended against. So once again, enjoy the slideshow. Alright, that will conclude the flash grenade. Now for the last sub-weapon, the grenade, also known as a hand grenade. And here it is in the inventory screen. A hand grenade that disperses lethal metal fragments and destroys its surroundings on detonation. Alright, so nothing really to see here. Just like the combat knife and the flash grenade, there is an abundance of these throughout the game. You can find an abundance of hand grenades if you play as Yurio Moki in the Tofu scenario, as you can see. So let's test it out. Explosions. Alrighty. So, let's see. It gets its own enemies since can't really compare it to anything else. I'm gonna test the hand grenade on a liquor. Alright, so it took only 2 grenades to defeat a liquor, with it being right next to the grenade. Probably would take a little more if you only get it within the outermost part of the blast radius. But there you go. So grenades are great for crowd control, I can tell you that. It's got me out of quite a few bad situations in my runs through this game. That is the best way I can describe the grenade for you. So that's it, using it offensively. Now let's see it used defensively against all enemies. Enjoy. Explosions galore. Alright, so that is going to go ahead and conclude the hand grenade as well as all sub-weapons.